"Mother, come meet Mrs. Gage." Though past 50, she was still a remarkably beautiful woman, with dark hair sparsely streaked with grey, smooth skin, and flashing dark eyes. I could see now that the lovely gown I'd viewed from a distance was also terribly stylish and undoubtedly purchased from a London shop. Combined with her rigid posture, elegant coiffure, and what I suspected were artfully applied cosmetics, I began to feel rather unkempt and dowdy in my striped carriage dress of straw, rose, and pale blue. Little as I cared for fashion, I felt grateful my more sophisticated sister had insisted on helping me choose the new gowns for my trousseau before I wed Gage 3 months prior. Otherwise, I had no doubt the woman before me would have judged me even more harshly than I could see she'd already done. She lifted her chin to stare down her nose at me, as her eyes gleamed with cold calculation. "But it isn't Mrs. Gage, is it? Properly, you should be addressed as Lady Darby, should you not?" It was questioned with quiet civility, but I knew better. So did Gage, though he didn't even flinch as she skillfully slid the dagger of her insult into his side. She was not the first person to point out this ridiculous bit of etiquette to us, because my first husband had been a baronet, a higher rank than Gage as a mere mister. By courtesy, though not by right, I was allowed to keep Sir Anthony Darby's name and rank. To address me as Mrs. Gage would be considered a snub by many in society, but I was more than eager to shed my first husband's name, regardless of the correct forms of address. And so I told her. Actually, I prefer to take my new husband's name. I favoured Gage with a loving smile, lest she think he had been the one to insist upon this request. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Rory's grin broaden. "I see," the woman replied stonily, though it didn't slip my notice she hadn't actually agreed to my appeal. "Good evening, Aunt Vanessa," Gage proclaimed, the sharp glint returning to his eyes. Her perfectly arched eyebrows lifted. "Sebastian?" I didn't like the grating manner in which she pronounced his name, absurdly adding an extra syllable, which she accented. I was quite certain she was doing it that way on purpose. "Kiera, allow me to present my aunt, the Dowager Baroness Langstone." So she was not a blood relation, but Gage's uncle's widow, and his late mother's sister-in-law. "Not that I'm not happy to see you," she said to Gage after nodding to me, her inflection stating that's exactly what she meant. "But what are you doing here?" I looked up at Gage, wondering how he would take the news that his grandfather had evidently not shared his plans with the other members of the family, but he did not seem surprised. That, in and of itself, said a great deal. "Grandfather sent for me," he explained, giving us both the satisfaction of startling Lady Langstone. "We're here to find Alfred."